cat. You have to move. Now I have two of those, and I'm not on either of them. What is happening? Oh. Well. I know you're angry, but you have to move. You can't sit here. I know. Or you can use this one. Look. Hello. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to get started on some heat embossing techniques. Let me make sure my mic is on. All right, I hope everybody can hear me okay. Here we go. All right, if you've joined in, take a second and say hello in the chat if you don't mind. I'm going to do a little bit of heat embossing today. Now, the first thing I'm going to do though is slice up some paper because I didn't do that yet. I have a roll of painter's tape stuck to my paper. I'm just going to cut these in half. At 5.5. Oop. Five and a half. Gonna let the cat out of the room real quick. Come on, you can come out. Yeah. So the first thing that I wanted to do is a resist technique. So I am going to do a couple of different things. I'm going to do this technique on white and then also on a yellow cardstock. So I'll cut that down as well. So heat embossing is a pretty simple technique, but it does take a couple different tools. The first thing that you need is a heat tool. Now, I happened to have picked up this heat tool recently, and I've used it briefly, but I'm really going to try it out today because previously I had only used it for drying some projects. But this is by Hippie Crafter, which is an organization that I recently learned of on Amazon, but they have their own website. So we're going to use this tonight. It does have 2 heat settings. It has a low setting and a high setting. And it does have a kickstand here. So we'll try that out. The other thing that you need when you do heat embossing is you need a sticky ink. So this is VersaMark ink. VersaMark ink is a sticky ink that sits on the surface of your paper, and it remains wet and sticky for I don't know, a minute? Maybe less than a minute, but plenty of time so you can slather your embossing powder all over it and before it dries. And then the last thing that you need is embossing powder. So I have a few different types of embossing powder that I'm going to be using today, but I'm going to start with this Ranger Clear Superfine Embossing Powder. You don't need a stamping tool to do this technique. As a matter of fact, I'm using a woodblock stamp first, so I'm going to put this aside. And then I'm going to work on a piece of like printer paper. That is just going to allow me to pour the embossing powder back into the jar easily when I'm done. So this has plastic on it that I just noticed, so I'm going to try to get that off real quick. Not prepared. Hold on. Hi, Rose. Sorry. I somehow created the live for 1 a.m. So then I had to unlive that one and start over. So I'm going to take my magnet out of the way. My VersaMark ink. I think these are the same. There are some other VersaMark. There's a Versa Dazzle, which is the ink, and it has a little bit of a, like almost a sheen, like a glitter to it. You can use this for watermark. This is one of my, my craft room hacks, is that I put the type of technique on the ink pad lid to remind myself what they can do, or to remind myself what to use it with and what not to use it with. So you can use this for a watermark. So when you use it on a stamp, you stamp onto like a dark paper, even a light paper, but it's more noticeable in a dark paper. You'll get an impression, and it lightens up the page. So I'm just looking for a piece of dark cardstock here so we can try that out too, and it'll sit while we're waiting. Here we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink up part of this. And put it right down onto this black piece of cardstock. And after a minute or so, we'll be able to see the watermark effect that you get. I should be in frame probably though, huh? So you may be able to see it a little bit in the light, but you'll basically get that impression once it dries on your paper. And it's a pretty cool effect. I'll set that one aside and we'll look at it again in a minute. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and use our yellow piece of cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and ink this whole stamp. And we'll use it on this yellow cardstock. You've probably seen this before. This is really like, I have very few stamps that are background stamps all in one pass. I mean, you can make a background stamp out of, or a background out of any small stamps too if you use them a bunch of times, but I don't have very many really big designy stamps, so that's why you might see this one a bunch in my videos. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down here, and I'm going to apply some pressure. I just assume that I'm going to be cutting this down later. If I have a stamp that I use, and I use the stamp press, I don't usually, or the stamp, any kind of stamping tool, stamp, like a Misty, or I have the Tim Holtz one as well. I usually don't mess with it this long. So the one thing that I didn't do is use the embossing powder tool. And so I'll use that in the next one. I even have a note here to remember to use it. Completely forgot. But I have these two. This guy and then the one that's just a little bag. But we will use that next. Okay. So, not sure that we can really see that. Oops, sorry. A little too close, huh? So I'm going to go ahead and just pour all kinds of this embossing powder. Now that was clear ink, and this is clear embossing powder. So you can probably see where we're going, or not see where we're going. Come on, that joke was hilarious. And just gonna move it around some. Gonna do another pass here from the other side, just to make sure I covered all of that embossing ink. There's a spot there. I think that maybe the impression from this woodblock stamp didn't get everywhere, because I'm seeing a blank spot, but we'll see how it goes. Yep, definitely. But I'm still gonna go with it because I could cut this down without that section and it'll be perfectly fine. So. Now I'm gonna try to not get this everywhere. Ooh. So I found a good deal on this particular clear Ranger embossing powder. So I'm going to probably get just like a Tupperware container or something so that I can have a wider base to work in. So we've got our embossing ink and our embossing powder. And now I'm just gonna try to get some of this away. So of course it's not super clean. And now it's all over me, but that's okay. And now we're gonna heat set this. So this is a little loud, but it is, I'll try to move it or point it away from the mic, but I'm going to hold it. Wait, my paper. I grabbed this tool, and you can use regular tweezers or backward tweezers or whatever helps you. Because I used a half a sheet of paper, I don't know that I'm gonna need something to hold the paper with, but a lot of times when you heat emboss, you'll have a smaller area and you don't wanna get your fingers in there. So sometimes I use the reverse tweezers. But I'm gonna heat this up just a little bit before I start to use it. And I'm probably gonna go ahead and use the low setting today. Like I said, this is the first time that I'm actually using this for this new heat tool for heat embossing. I have the Marvy one, but my husband uses it for work, and we just like pass it back and forth like once a week now, so I got my own. So I'm just going to heat this up just a tiny bit, and then I'm going to come in and as soon as it starts melting that powder, you'll be able to see it. Oh. Trying to get it where you can see it, but then I forgot that I probably have to look at it. So I'm going to check it out. I'm going to give it just a second. I'm going to go again here on the higher setting. There we go. When you're heat embossing, you kind of want to move it around. You don't want to burn your paper or the work surface for that matter. you guys happen to hear anything I just said over that? So now you can see, I think, so what I realized is I think that this first setting that I thought was the low setting is actually cool. No? So this is only the first part of this technique. We stamped it, heated it. You can probably see it there. But now what we have is a surface that is really like you stamped it in plastic. You can probably see there's a section here that the stamp didn't impress very well, but that's okay. Now we're going to do step 2. For this, I am going to be using Distress Oxide ink, and I'm looking for Seedless Preserves or Wilted Violet. There's Wilted Violet. And then I wanted a bluey kind of Uncharted Mariner with that. Ooh, or what about, I always lean on these 2 colors right now. I like this one too. So let's try that. I'm gonna grab one of my blending tools. And let's see, I think I'll start with this. I'm just gonna grab some mint tape so I can tape this down a little bit. I don't know that's gonna help me. You can see that the paper is a little warped just from working with it. You could, you know, I can set it under something later or just run it through the laminator without a laminating sheet and it'll straighten it right out. So now I'm going to get some color on here. And let's see. Yep. One of my tools lost the little Velcro thing. I have to paint it back, or glue it back on. So this is the Wilted Violet, and now I'm going to be using the Peacock Feather. And you can do this, you don't need Distress Oxide inks or Distress inks for this technique. You can use any ink that you have. If you use a dye ink, then then your final result might be a little different, but we'll look at that in just a second here. I think I am also wiggling the camera, so I apologize. There's that area that didn't have the stamping on it. Oop. You got some extra ink right there. And let's see. And now just a little more of this to kind of blend in where the color overlaps here. Get a little more color in there. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and, because what we heat embossed created like a almost a plastic image, stamped image, we are going to buff off the rest of the ink that's sitting on top of that image. And people will do this in a black or in, you know, different colors. Oops. And of course, the different color embossing powder versus whatever color you stamp with versus whatever you do your ink blending with, you know, can create some really cool different effects. And so for this, I will probably just cut it to use it as a background panel, but you can see the effect that you get from using clear embossing ink and clear embossing powder. Now, I think that, so a dye ink won't work for the stamping portion of this because it's going to dry too quickly, but you can use colored ink for embossing, and we'll look at that in just a second. And you can use different colored inks and different color embossing powders, and some inks remain wet on your paper longer than others, so some of it is just trial and error, but I like the way that turned out. It's pretty cool, and I really like the colors with this yellow showing through. All right, so I'm going to go back to my note and take a drink. So the next thing that I want to do is a little stamping on black cardstock. I just had that piece of paper and I don't know where I put it. Oh, there it is. So funny. Here is that piece of stock that we used for the watermark. There we go. I don't know if it comes up very well. I'm having a hard time seeing it in the camera, but you can see part of that image there. So it's a subtle effect a lot of the time, but it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice this down. And we're going to do some colored, wait, this is 5.5. We're going to do some colored embossing powder next on black. So now, let's see. Tinsel powder and one thing. So I'm going to get my stamp tool out. Stamp platform. I have a stamp that I wanted to use with this. This is a Hero Arts stamp. It is called One Thing at a Time. If you've just joined, I am just demonstrating a few different heat embossing techniques. I just did a resist technique, which ended up decently cool. And we'll do a little more resist in a minute. Now I'm just going to demonstrate using colored embossing powder. And I've got a couple different colors here. And I think I'm going to stick with this silver tinsel. I also have a rose quartz. It's pearl luster rose quartz, so that should be pretty cool. So let's see here. Now, what I'm going to do this time is actually use the powder tool. Now, these powder tools are created so that, at least for this purpose, it'll remove some of the static so that when you, after you ink, once you lay your embossing powder down, your embossing powder is only going to stick to your stamped image and not to the rest of the paper. And so it is pretty stark on black cardstock, but it'll go away after we do the heat embossing because we're going to be blowing air on it. Now, this powder bag, a bunch of different companies make this. This particular powder tool is by EK Success. I use both of them also for shakers because it really takes the static away from the acetate and then the sides of the foam. So let's see here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my ink out. Looks pretty good. Just looking at it in the light, I think it's pretty good. So try to keep a piece of acetate inside my MISTI, but I don't see where it is because of course it's see-through. But I'll just use the bag from the stamps. So I don't want to get any of the residue from this onto the stamp. So I'm going to set this aside. Same thing, I'm going to get out my piece of paper and this is the Recollections silver, is it called silver tinsel? Where's the name? Opaque Sparkle Bling. It's Opaque Sparkle Embossing Powder, but the name of the color is Bling. Gonna slather this all over. I think that should get all of it. Right. Move this aside. I'm gonna go ahead and heat it up. Might be a little loud. And I'm gonna turn it on off to the side for a second, just to heat it up. This one actually comes with a die, but I'm not going to cut it out right now. That looks pretty cool. And let's see. What time is it? Oop. All right, so the last technique I am going to do here is another resist technique. However, it starts with color blending. Here we go. It's like I knew I had paper here somewhere. Going to go in with these same I'm reading my notes. Oh, I see. Note to self. Okay. Just going to do a little bit of blending. I'm just going to use these two colors since these are the ones that I have currently. I don't have to go back. Now, of course, you can do this with colored paper. Any inks that you blend with. You can actually grab some spray as well. Let me grab some spray. Let's see. Has anyone joined you in the chat, Rose? All by yourself in there? This purple and peacock feather, making a really kind of cool iridescent blue right in this corner. I'm just going to go ahead and spray this with a little bit of water. Wait, I think maybe I need more. I think my stamp is pretty large. Let me grab another color here. I don't know that this one's going to look very good with these two, but we'll see how it goes. The other one I already pulled out. not really worried too much about how good my blend looks because we're going to cover a bunch of it up. But first, I'm going to go ahead grab the lighter. Where'd the other? There it is. Really should have this on a media mat so that I can blend better, but now I'm going to spray it with water. So just wanted to check my water spray here. Get some things out of the way. Now I'm going to spray it a little bit and then hit it with the heat pretty quickly. You can see it gets that glowy look from the oxidation. Oxidation, right? Let's see. There's another spot right there. And what I'm going to try to do now it's still a little damp. I'll dry it a little more. Pretty sure I didn't use pink, but I see a lot of pink here, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna grab this guy. I'll move this stamp. I'll clean it after we're done. I'm gonna go ahead and put this here. There's another one of these somewhere. And I'm going to be using this guy today. This is Simon Says Stamps Yin Yang. It came out, I think, last month. It is giant, and I love it so. And I haven't even used it yet, so, and it is red rubber. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Try it here. I have other another magnet somewhere. So if you have one of these stamping tools, when you use the red rubber, it's higher, so you don't need this piece of foam. If you use the Tim Holtz tool, you just flip over the top, and it works that way. It has the top, when you have the platform in one direction, it is higher than in the other direction. And that way, you get the right height for whichever type of stamp you're working with. I am just going to go ahead and move this up here, and I had to steal my magnets from my other tool. To keep them down. Keep those ends down. So, I'm gonna give this a try. So, I am going to ink up with my VersaMark. So many things on my desk right now. Since this is such a large image stamp, I'd have to do it a couple times. Sorry, I'm looking at how much you can see also. Okay. So from here, when I move this around, it looks pretty inked up. Just gonna go ahead and give it a pass here. Looks pretty good and pretty covered, but it's hard to tell between how big the stamp is and how clear the embossing powder is, or the embossing ink is. And like I said, you don't have to use clear ink and clear embossing powder all the time, but just for these couple techniques, they just call for that. All right, see how that goes. Just gonna set my stamp aside. Actually, I'll just leave it here. And because I used silver embossing, because I had silver embossing powder on that scrap paper that I was using for my funnel, I'm going to go ahead and get a new one because I don't want to get silver embossing remnants in my white embossing powder. Or, I'm sorry, my clear embossing powder. So, where to go? There he is. All right. There's a lot of embossing powder, huh? No. Well, I see what happened there. Looks like there is a section that didn't stamp, but we're going to go ahead and complete this without that little section. It'll be just fine. It'll definitely demonstrate this, this technique regardless. Hi, Janine. Thanks for joining. Hope you're doing well tonight. I am just doing a couple different heat embossing techniques and making a mess, of course. Let's see, there's my lid. Put this one aside. All right, I'm gonna turn on the heat gun. I'm gonna let it warm up a second, and then you guys will hear it blowing in the microphone. Okay. Hi, Vernia. It definitely does not need to be that much embossing powder. You can use it sparingly, but the rest of it all just goes back into the jar. So kind of just slather it everywhere. And I am going to massage this paper. Just a little bit. Get the dust out of the way. And I'm gonna do a little more blending. Now, I know that this is kind of awkward, and I don't think I would really worry about it that much if I wasn't kind of trying to demonstrate this. And so the these colors and this particular colored blended ink is caught underneath this clear embossing powder. So I'm going to do some more ink blending, but this is going to essentially stay the same. And I will go ahead and grab another color, and I think I just want some more of this. No, I think I need a darker one. I'm gonna try Seedless Preserves. It's a purple, but it's a little darker. I'm gonna slather some of this on. Let's see. Actually, thinking out loud. I know what I'm going to do. Don't forget to read your notes. So, that here. Oh, I was looking for my Misty is right under the phone. Sorry. I use the other phone to look at the chat. The new Misty is super exciting. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to grab a piece of acetate. Like I said, usually I keep one in here, but because it is clear, I'm having a hard time finding it. Of course, it doesn't have to be fancy acetate. This is just from some little recipe books we put together at where I work. And it was very much, once we were moving offices and they got rid of a bunch of office stuff, so I grabbed a stack of this. But the reason why I have the acetate out is because I want to put my paper down. I'm going to run this through really fast. Hang on. It's much better. Okay, so when I use my Misty and I already have some stuff going on below, I like to see how strong these magnets are. So crazy. I like to be able to kind of see where I'm going here. And so these aren't clear stamps, but I think they're indexed pretty well. So for the most part, I'm going to be able to find where this needs to go. And that acetate is keeping the residue from the last time I stamped from getting on my paper, because I'm not ready for that yet. And I think this should have just a little bit. And probably my fat head is in the way, so I apologize. I don't want it totally touching. So now I can close this up, grab my stamp onto the Misty lid, take another look and see if it is where I want it to be. And I think it's pretty good. Like I said, I haven't tried this or done this technique with these stamps. I haven't done any technique with these stamps yet. So just a little bit of trial and error, because we do real life crafting. I am just going to ink this up as much as possible. Not sure, you guys can't even see that. There we go. I'm gonna move this around a little bit so I don't like smash the same spot on the ink pad the whole time. But also, I think it is done just about when it looks like an even coat, but also you don't see a lot of the lines from the end of the stamp pad. Because I don't know that it's gonna be, you know, a completely complete line or complete image. There might be areas that are a little less inky than others. I have so many ideas for this stamp set, and I finally decided that I needed to pull it out and start using it. I don't know if this is going to be the best thing I make with it, but we'll see. So for a lot of my cards, I don't even put sentiments inside, but some I do. But a lot of times, if I know what I'm going to be doing, I will stamp the sentiment first on the inside. But either way, it just makes the Misty, I'm sure you've seen, just makes it so much easier to do things like go back right here and try to get some more ink. Also, there are some areas that it don't look like they're inking up very well, or maybe I missed on the stamp. So can definitely put some more ink on here. Try to smash that down. A little bit more. I feel like it's laughing at me. It's like one little spot. Eventually, I'm just going to start picking up the rest of the ink. Okay, I'm going to go for it. I think it is not going to be perfect, but I think that that is okay. There's all kinds of stuff going on in here. That's my acetate. I have ink all over that acetate, or all over that stamp, so I'm going to close it on top of the acetate because that'll be easy to wipe off later. And I'm going to go ahead and find oh, that's not even the right one, is that? Wasn't anybody yelling at me? Also not the right one. Okay, I'm gonna take a second. I'm gonna breathe and grab this one because it's the right one. Yeah, you definitely don't need to put this much embossing powder on. But I think the thing that I don't like is to have to fuss a whole bunch to get a little tiny bit of embossing powder to go all over my image. Because it's hard enough even if you have a bunch of embossing powder. Let's see how that goes. First, I'll put the rest back in here. All right. Anyone see where I put my lid? There it is, underneath. All right, I'm going to turn on the heat tool again. And it'll be a little loud, but I'm going to set it off to the side, heat it up a little bit first, and then I'll bring it over. So, pretty cool so far. Now this should pretty quickly just be set. It seems to be set. So, there's one last part to this particular technique that I wanted to do. And I'm going to use a dark distress ink color, but I'm not going to use, but just be sure that you don't do this part with a dye ink, because if you use like your Memento or VersaFine, a lot of times it will stain this part of the image, this clear embossing powder, and even maybe this colored one. And so you don't want it to dye it. You want to be able to do a little bit of resist so that we can blend away the excess, just like we did in that first piece that we did. And I'm looking for, there's a gray color I have. I think it's this one, Hickory Smoke. So I am down to my last, I only have so many of these blending brushes, so I have to change them out. And again, this is the Distress Oxide and Hickory Smoke. So we have a couple of things. There's a little piece here that's poking out, that's purple. Not too worried about it. And then this whole section of the point that didn't end up working, but this definitely will explain, will demonstrate the technique. So going back in with the dark color. And you can see I am getting it on top of that embossed piece of the purple. But it's going to come off of there. We're going to burnish, or not burnish, buff it off of there with our paper towel as soon as we're done doing the rest here. It's also getting on top of the clear, but the same thing. We are going to remove it in just a moment. And you can definitely use something a little darker, but I think this might be the darkest that I have that's not, I mean, I have some darker colors, but no like dark black or gray. And you can keep going if you want to all the way to the end. I'm going to take my paper towel, and you can see where, you know, that line is where I've been ink blending, but that's coming right up onto my paper towel. There we go. So not perfect, but still cool. I'll still use this on a card. Let's see a little bit more of the gray here. I think that the ink right through here also wasn't fully covering, right? So that's why you can see a little more of the gray, because a little more of the paper was peeking out from underneath there. So let's see. I think a little more color. And I'll probably play with this a little bit later. Probably blend it out to the end because I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to put this on so far. But it's a pretty cool technique, especially if you have a stamp set like this one. There you go. So let's look at what we've done. Let's look at the mess I've made. So many things to clean up. So I don't know where I put them. Just stack them over here. Everything's sticking. So here is the silver on black, which is pretty cool. It's sparkly, so it's kind of hard, like it almost looks like it's not set, but it is. Just because it almost looks like glitter on the page. Definitely not, though, not falling off. And then this one. This is the clear embossing ink with clear embossing powder, and then I set it, and then I blended over the top of it. So let's see. For this one, I am most likely to cut it down like this. Let's take a look. Does anybody else have the Fiskars paper trimmer with the wire in it, so you see where it's going to cut? Let's see. It's casting a shadow, so it's kind of hard to see now, but let's see. Pretty good. Again, there's still this whole section. Oh, you guys can't even see. There's still this whole section here that it didn't pick up. So I'll probably cut that off and use just part of this as a card base. But there you go. Pretty neat. Could cut this off, or even just lay a sentiment, like a pretty sturdy sentiment across it, and you know, who's going to notice aside of me? All right, so those are, let me see, let me check my list. So I actually did have one more, let me see, find the stamp. People came to chat, Rose, and you weren't even there. I wonder what color would be good with this. Okay, I'm gonna remove this. Whoop. Poked it. I'm just gonna do one more image here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this clear stamp. And because of that, it is not as thick as the red rubber. So I went ahead and put my felt or foam, I think it's foam, back in here. Maybe we should try this on, let's try it on white. So this is, I hid my magnet from myself. This is just a color that I've had. Embossing powder that I've had for I think maybe 20 years, literally maybe 20 years. All right. And this is not a fancy technique. This is just regular heat embossing. Got a clear ink pad, and I'm going to use this Stampendous Luster embossing powder. Again, you could do this on colored cardstock. And there's some schmutz on here. Not sure what it is. Is it ink? Oh, yeah, that's what it is. All right. Well, I took a little bit of that off my fingers anyway. Gonna put my acetate sheet back in here. That's what it is. It's from that. Note to self. The acetate trick works, but not if you smash your fingers into. So this is that stamp. I don't even know if this product is on the market anymore. It is Rose Quartz Pearl Luster Stampendous. This is actually from Anaheim. Well, is it Vernia? You definitely can do this, but you could definitely start at whatever pace, wherever you want. And if you have any questions, you can always get a hold of me on my channel. And my email address actually is in the description box of all of my other videos. So you could even email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. It's so hard to see the clear embossing powder and the clear ink that I think every single one I did, I have a section that is not perfect. We're still going to heat this and see how it turns out. All right, one more time with the heat gun, heating it up. This is gonna say, enjoy you day. Pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know what that is, Rose. I do real life crafting. Also, I do real life messes because I don't know how I'm gonna get this off of here. So this is what that one looks like. Not as exciting as I thought it would be, but it's still pretty. This would have been really pretty on like a different, like a light blue maybe. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining me. Don't forget that Jupiter is visible tonight without binoculars or a telescope. It should be the brightest star out there, apparently, that I read on the internets. But so you might be able to see it. And I will be back next week. And thanks for joining me. And if you have a second, please hit the like button. I appreciate your time. I hope you learned something or were at least entertained. Have a good night. Bye.